Hello, everyone, and welcome to the PumpkinCopter cast, a good old podcast about video games. Today, we have a lot of Nintendo-related stuff to talk about, and joining me today is my good friend Ben. How are you, Ben?
I'm doing great. Thanks for asking.
So, the most important Nintendo-related thing to talk about, obviously, is the Nintendo Switch, Nintendo's latest console, and the official name of the NX. So, now, just we all know, all of us are worried about the NX. Let's not sugarcoat it. I'm worried. I love Nintendo. It's one of my favorite companies, and I have some legitimate concerns. But the PumpkinCopter cast, at the end of the day, is a show that aims to celebrate the positive side of gaming. So instead of spending most of our time talking about what we think can go wrong, let's try and add a bit of cheer and talk about what we think will go right with it. So, Ben, what do you think could go right with the Switch if it succeeds?
Hmm. Well, if it succeeds, I think we can agree that from the software side of things, it's not going to run into any issues. Nintendo, of course, for all of its issues with the Wii U, has been arguably the most consistent from a developer standpoint with a lot of its games on the Wii U. And I imagine the Switch obviously is going to maintain that high level of quality. And you saw that they announced a bunch of really prominent third party developers that are coming on board that didn't really do that last time. You've got the EAs, the Activisions, the Ubisofts, and you've got some secondhand developers that are a bit more obscure like Platinum, Namco, From Software. It speaks to a legitimate commitment to resolve this third party problem that's been crippling Nintendo for decades. And it was really nice to see them tackle that head on.
Good point. I'm excited just because, just the trailer just poked right into that part of my brain that gets me excited for any and every little awesome thing. I mean, just the fact that if the trailer is anything to go by, you can take it on the go and quite easily. And I'm starting to do a bit more traveling throughout the year, so being able to play it on something like being able to play it on the plane, being able to play a full-fledged Nintendo game on a plane is something that, quite exciting for me.
Yeah, I agree with you. There's a lot to be said for dedicated games machines becoming increasingly portable over the last few years, if not from the hardware side, then definitely the software with the cloud streaming and the subscription services. But one detail I found particularly interesting, I don't know if people noticed this, was that it looked like the controller, you could take it apart from the screen and snap the pieces together so that it was one controller, but it looked like you could also reprogram it so that each of those two pieces of the controller could also be a separate controller in and of themselves. That's going to be a real conversation piece at parties, like the one they had in the trailer. It's going to really turn some heads.
That sounds very interesting. And I've heard in some of the circles I'm in, I've heard some talk about people especially looking forward to the fact that it's portable because, the nature of things and different people in different communities with different jobs means they can't be at home playing video games as much, and so having something like this will be a great benefit to them.
Yeah, there's a lot to be said for the physical versatility of the platform, but I don't want to say that's an automatic win because, I know this isn't Nintendo related, but we saw the PlayStation Vita fail horribly because even though it was designed to be a portable system, it still had that mentality of being a console you put down in front of the machine. But with the high price point, the need for proprietary memory cards, it was just a lot to handle in a portable device. So I know Nintendo said they were going to have another event on January 12th next year where they were going to go over things like the price, the software lineup at launch, and a bunch of other facts. I hope that they really stress the portability with a price that it doesn't have to be cheaper than the 3DS, but it definitely has to be, I think, within the $200 to $250 price range if they really want it to sell.
Huh. It's actually a lot cheaper than I thought it would be. I thought it would be somewhere in the range of where the Wii U was when it hit 300.
Well, if the idea is that they're trying to avoid the mistakes of the Wii U, I wouldn't be surprised if making it cheaper right out of the gate would be one of their first steps. But that's just me.
Huh. It's quite a lot to take in.
Yeah, a lot based on a simple 3-minute trailer.
And one of the things that I and pretty probably everyone else is going to speculate on is, what exactly type of games we're going to look forward to. I mean, we know from the trailer that we're getting a 3D or a 3D-ish Mario game at some point in its lifespan. The question is, how many games in the Switch's eventual library will take advantage of just how portable and versatile its controls are?
Well, portability is part of it, but at this point, we don't really know much about the hardware apart from it having an NVIDIA Tegra processing chip. And even though that's certainly a lot of power, we don't know if it's something that's going to be on par with the PlayStation 4, Xbox One, or the PS4 and the Scorpio. I know that Nintendo has never really prioritized processing power over, artistic direction because there have been plenty of games from the GameCube and Wii era that still hold up visually, while a lot of early 360 games tend to look rather, rubbish. But, if the idea is that they're trying to win back the third-party developers, they need to provide at least a comparable experience. Like, I noticed they had footage of Skyrim. I don't know if it's technically been confirmed, but if there is a version of Skyrim for the Switch, it'll be an interesting litmus test to see how it compares to not just the 360 and the PS3 versions, but also the remastered Legacy Edition that came out just yesterday.
That is interesting. Skyrim for me was a big surprise because I didn't exactly consider the people who play Skyrim regularly and Nintendo's regular group of supporters as being groups that could be joined, but maybe it coming to the Switch will help bridge that gap.
Yeah, that's one reason why a lot of people have been complaining about Nintendo's lack of third-party support. I mean, sure, you need to have really good exclusive software that you can have, available not anywhere else, but that doesn't mean you can just ignore big guns like Madden or Call of Duty. Just because you can't imagine the audience of, say, Bloodborne, which is frankly my favorite PS4 game ever made, existing in the same space as, people who play Call of Duty, that doesn't mean it's any less important to have an exclusive like that to bring that audience in because, it adds credibility to your platform and it also adds, profitability.
So, with Nintendo potentially adding a game like Skyrim, do you think that the possibility exists that it could have a game that, if it's not Dark Souls or Bloodborne, that maybe it could be Dark Souls or Bloodborne-esque? Do you think a game like that is something that could be possible for the Switch in the future?
Wow, there is a lot to unpack there. I mean, we know that From Software have recently come on board as developing a game for the Nintendo Switch, but we don't even know if it's going to be like a Dark Souls game, strictly speaking. For all we know, it could be a new Armored Core game. I know that's one of the projects they're working on, or maybe it could be an entirely new IP where the focus isn't necessarily on, pardon the pun, soul-crushing difficulty. But the other thing is, Nintendo has really prided itself on accessibility, not making things incredibly difficult in the beginning, but rather having their experiences kind of gradually go up in difficulty. Like, if any of you listening to this have played Super Mario Galaxy, you'll know that just getting the 60 or 70 stars to beat the game, so to speak, starts out easy and then gets noticeably harder. But then if you're the kind of person who tries to get all 120 stars, you'll know what I mean when I mention the Luigi Purple Coin Challenge. And I apologize if that makes you recoil in horror or have traumatizing flashbacks.
Oh boy, I certainly remember that one. That was a nightmare beyond description.
You don't know the half of it.
Oh, well. And to bring it back to the portability and the versatility of the controls, well, for me anyway, is throughout the year, my various extended family have various get-togethers for all the major holidays, and while none of them are as into gaming as I am, they have been known to play certain games like Super Mario Bros. Wii and all that, when we're all together and, we have nothing better to do. And I think it'd be really interesting and, socially, both in formal and informal gatherings to, be able to bring the Switch screen and the two small controllers and being able to boot up and play a full-fledged Nintendo title, at your cousin's dinner table, after Thanksgiving or something like that. That's a part I'm most excited for.
Yeah, I'm really excited about that too. Though if Nintendo were smart, they would make it so that you could have a sort of Wi-Fi system link between multiple Switch consoles where, say, if you brought over your Switch with a copy of Super Mario Brothers and, your cousin had something like that who also had a copy of Super Mario Brothers, you could just join the two and it could be like an 8-player platforming fracas. Or, better idea, if they had a version like that of Mario Kart or Splatoon or Mario Party where both people didn't even need a copy of the game. It could just be one copy with support for multiple players, kind of like what they did with the 8-player support for Smash on the Wii U, but across multiple systems at once. That would be amazing if they could pull it off.
Right. I could imagine many a chaotic afternoon happening if something like that ever becomes a reality.
Me too, and I mean that in the best way possible.
Oh, I know the joy of chaotic Mario Kart and Smash Bros. Sessions.
All too well.
So let's see. The portability, the games. It seems like we've gone through quite a bit of the Nintendo Switch, so what's anything else? So something else I've noticed other YouTubers cover during their advertisement campaign. Well, to be more specific, Andre from Black Nerd Comedy, he pointed out that, during the Nintendo Switch's debut trailer, there was not a single kid, and that all the people there were either young adults or adults into their 30s. And that, now that I think back on it, I notice that I can't not notice it. So, do you think it seems like Nintendo might be just not entirely, but at least slightly inching away from the kid image that the Wii and the Wii U might have brought it?
I can understand why they did that, because they want to win back the trust of lapsed fans who got frustrated by the emphasis on the casual software that made the Wii a hit but didn't really help the Wii U. But that's not to say that their software has suddenly been, extremely M-rated hardcore, Bayonetta 2, notwithstanding, because they still have the Splatoon and the Mario Kart. It's still kid friendly in terms of like the image. I think what's happening is that they're moving away from having a bunch of arbitrary gimmicks and focusing more on gameplay as a selling point, which has worked well for the PS4 since the beginning, and it's an approach that I could see myself getting behind.
Yeah, I like to. Going back to my optimistic side, I like to think that as more information on the Wii U is revealed and as the Wii U is brought into stores everywhere, I think that, when all is said and done, the Switch will be remembered as a console that, at the very least, did a very good job helping bridge the gap between, kid-friendly and, for older audiences. I think it
Yeah.
has that potential, at least.
Yeah, at the very least, we could both agree that it's been communicated a heck of a lot better than the Wii U was. Like, I mean, I knew it was a new console the moment it was announced, but I know a lot of other people, like Stuttering Craig from Screw Attack said in a top 10 list that he had been gaming, for longer than me, and he didn't know right away that it was a new console. A lot of people thought that it was just an attachment or a peripheral for the existing Wii, which, shot it in the foot in terms of sales. But with the Switch, yeah, you could argue that it's a redo of the Wii U concept with the push on portability and not needing to be hooked up to a TV. But at least people seem to get that it's an entirely new piece of hardware this time. It's a small distinction, but it's a huge one.
That's a very good point. For me, I'm just looking forward to the days when ever I'm on the go, I can boot up something as competitively intense as Splatoon and being able to play it like on the go or on a trip. Something like there's just so much potential, so much awesome stuff that Nintendo could bring to the table with this concept that I'm excited for.
I just hope the battery holds up this time.
Eh, I didn't think the Wii U battery was too bad. I mean, a bit annoying, but not much, but that's neither here nor there.
Yeah, but if it's a portable machine, that's something that's going to be a huge sticking point. Even if, guys like us are going to have the thing plugged in and charging all the time, you can't always just assume that if it's charged, it's going to last, say, an entire road trip or a flight or a Splatoon marathon match. For some people, it's a perfectly fair point.
True. But considering how Nintendo, at least through this trailer, how much effort they've gone on to point out, like, how much effort has they've put into establishing the Nintendo Switch as a completely new, different thing, and how different it is compared to the Wii and the Wii U, I think they'll probably do a pretty good job addressing something like the battery life once information like that becomes the newest thing to want.
Yeah, although it does kind of stink that we have to wait until after the holiday season to learn more about it.
Yep, that's gonna gnaw away at me until it happens.
Yeah.
Well, we've gone through what we've gone through the parts of the Switch that have made us excited, and I always want to keep this an optimistic outfit, so we'll put the Nintendo Switch stuff aside until more news comes our way, and we'll go to the next biggest piece of Nintendo news. Super Mario Run, Nintendo's first true foray into mobile gaming. Now, when I first saw this, when I first first of all, it was a shock to see Miyamoto at an Apple event. Like, that was just weird for me, anyway. But, just a portable a Mario you can just boot up and play on your phone. Like, people have been talking about it for years, and you think it, but just seeing it happen and see it being announced in an official capacity, it just part of me still thinks of how surreal it is that this is something that's actually happening and it's going to happen soon.
I have fond memories of, gasping in shock. Not necessarily shock and horror, as some people did, but shock when I saw it happen for the first time. On the one hand, it kind of brought back memories of when it happened with Sega and the Dreamcast, and they started, putting Sonic on Nintendo machines. Even though, it was like necessary at the time to keep from quitting the business completely, I did feel like it lost a little something along the way. And I imagine I'll feel similarly about Nintendo putting their stuff on mobile devices. Now, as to whether or not Super Mario Run is going to be a bad game just because it's not exclusive to a Nintendo platform, there were versions of really early Mario games like Donkey Kong and Mario Brothers that were on non-Nintendo platforms. And, I don't remember the world exploding over that. So it's not like this is technically a new thing, but I'm really optimistic that if this does end up just being a Mario Endless Runner, it's going to be a really, really good one on principle.
Yeah, the first thing that let me breathe a sigh of relief was Miyamoto saying pretty much up front that it's not going to be as Jim Sterling said, a fee to pay game. He mentioned that there's going to be that the version you download is going to be like the demo version, and then you can pay like a one-time fee to get the full version. And just knowing that, it's gonna make this whole thing for me a lot easier.
Yeah, it's the kind of business model I do wish more free to play games had. Like, I get it wouldn't make sense with a game like Hearthstone where collectability is part of the design, but I can applaud Nintendo for basically offering at least some of the game up front and then giving us the option to pay for the rest with cash. Though, if I did have one recommendation for Nintendo, it would be to make it so that the content you can buy with cash, you can also buy using in-game currency. Like, you can buy this level pack for $1.99, or you could get really good at the game and save up enough coins for beating the levels that you can use those to pay for that part of the game as well. I think that would be a really good idea.
It seems like something Nintendo could do. I mean, they've done a pretty good job with the DLC they have brought so far. I mean, I was genuinely excited for all the DLC that was announced when they brought out those two new packs for Mario Kart 8. Like, that was well worth paying for, and, it just added so much.
Hmm.
They made it feel like a good value, and it was something like Super Mario Run, making people feel like they got their money's worth is very important.
That actually never crossed my mind until you just mentioned it. What if Nintendo took that model of giving a demo and then offering you to pay for the rest of the game and ran with that in the future? Like, if this game turns out to be wildly successful, as opposed to just really successful, because, come on, it's Mario on mobile. Of course it's going to be successful.
Yep.
They did that with additional downloadable level packs that came out every couple of months, taking that principle and applying it to a mobile space. That would be a really good idea.
That does sound like a really good idea. I mean, Nintendo, like, for all of its flaws, and, there are quite a few to list, but I'm not gonna. Nintendo has never really gained a reputation for incredibly shady DLC related things. I mean, the DLC they've added to all the games that have had it have always, as well, from what I've seen, have always added like real, tangible value to the game. Like it didn't feel like just a cheap thing, like paying $5 to get new skins or something like that.
Yeah, and you have to give them credit as well for not, having a bunch of it available at launch. I was just reading this story about this multiplayer game Evolve, where the developer said they weren't going to support it anymore because it fell victim to that. They had like $100 worth of DLC available at launch last year. A lot of it was cosmetic, and it torpedoed the game in terms of sales. They even tried to do a last minute free to play conversion, and it didn't work out. So I can tell you firsthand that no matter how good a game is, if your business model is exploitative and shady, then the game isn't just going to succeed. And don't even get me started on Street Fighter V, but that's a completely different story.
Yeah. And moving on to the gameplay of Super Mario Run, while it seems to follow new Super Mario Bros. Style, I mean, it's like considering that it's a runner, if not an endless runner, a runner of some type, they seem to be doing a lot with that formula if the trailer's anything to go by. Like, I saw, like, you still have to jump over gaps with lava, you can hang on railings. I think there's tiles on the floor that when you land on it, it stops you, thus allowing for some breathing room. There's tiles that can reverse your direction, allowing you to get more coins. Like, I'm optimistic that the gameplay in Super Mario Run is gonna actually, feel like, well, it's gonna feel different considering it's on mobile, and that's an entirely different beast compared to 3DS and the Nintendo consoles. But even though it will feel different, I feel like it will still feel like a core Mario experience.
Yeah, I'm confident they can pull that off too. And I've already seen it happen with Ubisoft when they took Rayman and put it on mobile with games like Jungle Run, Fiesta Run, and Adventures. That's basically what they did, where they took a lot of the concepts and designs from the levels in Rayman Origins and Legends and fitted it on mobile so that the character ran automatically, but you still had to use your thumbs to swipe to get him to change direction, to jump, to punch, and it still felt like the real deal, even with such a radical difference in the control scheme. So they'll definitely pull it off, though, if they decided to include gamepad support down the line, that wouldn't be a bad idea, for people who, for some reason, just absolutely refuse to play a game like Mario with a touchscreen.
So, like, we both know that this is just gonna explode all over the world just due to the nature of Mario on mobile officially made by Nintendo. But, like, how big do you think that this will be if it succeeds? That's something I've been mulling around.
Well, obviously, a lot of people are going to download the demo. I signed up for it the day it was announced at that Apple event. But in terms of who's going to pay money if they've had their fill with the demo, especially if they have that option where you can save up coins to pay for it that way, that's going to be a much trickier metric for success. But let's assume, for the sake of argument, that whoever gets it is going to pay anyway. I could totally see it doing, like at least 5 to 7 million downloads on day one. Pokemon Go, say what you will about it, it did prove that there is a market already for Nintendo nostalgia, and that's certainly not going to change with a Mario game.
I mean, Pokemon Go is not exactly the most perfect thing, but even with all of those flaws, it just was huge. Like, Nintendo got like so much revenue when their stock jumped a pretty noticeable amount, like right away. So if Super Mario Run has that kind of widespread success on top of like the solid foundation of gameplay that Mario games are known for nowadays, I think it's gonna. I think it has the chance to be even more widespread and just like face explodingly huge as Pokemon Go.
It definitely has the potential to be successful as a mobile game, but the real challenge is going to be converting the type of people for whom this is going to be their first time playing a Mario game, or it could be their first time playing video games at all, because I know a lot of people who played Angry Birds or Candy Crush, it was their first time playing a video game. The challenge is going to be having the game be a strong enough positive impression to convince them to get, what could be a $250 piece of plastic to put in front of their TV. It's remarkably easy for people like you and me who've been doing this their entire lives to forget that it's a remarkably difficult concept to wrap your head around if you haven't been, doing it since like the age of 3. And we saw how poorly it backfired when they assumed that people who bought a Wii were just going to be lifelong Nintendo customers.
Yeah. But, I'm just really excited for Super Mario Run, and like, I feel like at the very least I'll have a fun time with it.
Yeah, if nothing else, it's going to be a very interesting thing to see play out, no pun intended.
Yeah, I think it'll be quite a thing to keep an eye on as the months roll on by.
Yeah, and who knows? Maybe if it's successful, it'll have an impact on some of the other projects they've got going on. I know they announced games based on Animal Crossing and Fire Emblem. So, I mean, I can see, an Animal Crossing game like that with like an endless runner mini game, but not so much a mobile title with the Fire Emblem license. I mean, for the record, I've never played a Fire Emblem game. I know what they are, and I appreciate them for being these really difficult strategy games. But you can't really see like a free to play model with that structure without it coming off as overly punitive. Like, oops, you lost this character forever unless you want to pay $5 to bring them back. Just leave a bad taste in everyone's mouths.
Yeah. I'm wondering if the Fire Emblem mobile game would even be free to play at all, or rather if it would just have a fixed price from the get go.
I imagine it would be fixed price, kind of like what they did with the mobile port of the original XCOM, where it was a really expensive purchase. I think it was upwards of $20 for an app,
I believe
which
so.
is a lot, but it was still the whole experience. Like, there weren't any cheap microtransactions or DLC purchases. You got the whole game, even if it was a lot.
And I also feel like Animal Crossing on mobile would be well suited, considering just how like casual and relaxing Animal Crossing games have been known to be.
I just really hope that if they do go with some kind of microtransaction shop, I'm praying for the love of God that Tom Nook isn't running it.
Oh,
Oh,
just by nature of you saying that, it's gonna happen. I guarantee.
Yeah, for anyone who knows what I'm talking about, I apologize for ruining your lives and wallets in advance.
Tom Nook. Evil man.
Yeah. It's ruined so many mortgages.
Oh, I've been there. Well, I do believe that is it for this particular episode of the PumpkinCopter cast. If any of the -3 people who are watching this liked what they heard, feel free to subscribe and give it a like and a thumbs up, or I know those two are the same thing. Whatever. If you'll enjoy it, you know what to do on the YouTubes by now. So, this has been me, T. Gorman83. That's your line, Ben.
Oh, and this is me, Ben. It's a pleasure speaking to you all.
And this has been the PumpkinCopter cast, a good old podcast about video games. Episode 2. We did it, everyone. More than one episode. I can now officially call this a series and not the demented ramblings of a madman.
Demented ramblings of mad men. I'm psychotic too, you know.
You said it, not me.
Great minds think alike.
So, until next time, everyone, we'll see you later.
Bye, everybody.